Hola mi gente, welcome to Cat and Too Many Books. I'm Kat and I wanted to do a very quick video today talking about the books that I read in March. So I have read 5 books this month, which is pretty good, like, to be fair. And I had, you know, it was an interesting month. I had on both sides of the spectrum here. I had some books. So let me just kind of dive on in here and talk about the books that I read. Let me give some quick stats. I read 5 books in March. I read 1,735 pages. All of the books I read were in print, and all of the books I read this month were fiction books. So let's just get into it. I had some very different ratings this month, but let's start with the very first book that I read this month, and that was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So I feel like I am finding my romance era because I absolutely loved Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I gave it 5 stars. I loved this book so much. Everything about this was amazing. I loved the characters. They were both wonderful, lovable characters. I loved their relationship. I loved how we talked about domestic abuse, but through the vein of the male character, because while domestic abuse is something we don't even talk about enough, we definitely don't talk about it from the aspect of men who are abused, because there is a great number of men who are abused as well in relationships, and I loved learning about how that affected the characters. So this story is about Chloe and Red. Chloe has she has a disability. She suffers from fibromyalgia, which obviously hinders a lot of her life, and she at the beginning of the book almost dies. She's almost hit by a car, and she just kind of life flashes before her eyes, and she finds like her life is very boring. So she decides to make a list, Get a Life, Chloe list, where she decides to do a bunch of different things, like have a wild, like no strings attached one night stand kind of thing, and go out bar crawling, and go camping, and go hiking, or I think it's go backpacking across Europe. Just these things that she wants to do to just sort of feel like she's living her life, because she's kind of been in a sort of just like very steady sort of steady pace of life because of her disability, and she wants to change. And then Red is the superintendent of the superintendent of her building. Like, he's the guy that kind of helps everybody out, and he's a man recovering from a domestic an abusive relationship, very mentally and emotionally abusive relationship, actually physically abusive as well. You learn later on as you move into the book, and it's just about these two characters coming together and healing by themselves, but also kind of being a wonderful support system for each other. And their love is, I love how they talk about each other, and some of the way that this is just written is gorgeous, and I loved it so much. Like, I don't always highlight things in books, but there's like a couple of lines in here that I absolutely adored and had to like highlight, because it was beautiful. And yeah, I love this book so much. I am definitely going to pick up the second in the series. I really love Talia Hibbert's writing, and the spicy scenes were fantastic. I'm not a big person. I don't really need a lot of spicy scenes or smut in my romances. I generally don't care for them, not because I think that's great. If you love it, it's great. But I feel like I read so many romances, very spicy, smutty romances when I was growing up, when I was much younger, that I always feel like the scenes are just very much the same. And so I'm like, I don't get anything from it. But oh my God, I love the way Talia Hibbert writes about sex. I think it's refreshing and awesome, and I loved it. It was great. 5 stars. Love it. The next book that I finished in March was Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. I'm a little sad about this book. I wanted to like it so much more than I did. I actually gave it a 2.5. There just was a lot about this book that I like. The atmosphere of it was interesting, but I just didn't like. There was no real magic system to it. I don't like the ending at all, to be perfectly frank. And it just didn't. I didn't like the way people talked about it. I expected something completely different, and I don't know, the love story felt a little too young adultish for me when these characters are in their late 20s, 30s at this point, I think. And I don't know. There was just I don't like when there's an unsatisfying ending to things. And I feel like this book had a very unsatisfying ending for me. Maybe it was a realistic ending, it's possible, I guess, but it was unsatisfying. So I did like the writing, though. I did like Adrienne Young's writing. So I think I'm going to pick up the next book just because I really did enjoy the writing. And I have it already, but I'm definitely going to actually pass this book on. I'm not keeping it because, again, I gave it a 2.5. I'm a little disappointed by it. Next, I actually read a book that I was really kind of looking forward to, and that's Once There Were Wolves. It's a library read by Charlotte McConaghy. I read it for the Irish Reading Month because it's March and you're, reading from an Irish author. I loved Migrations, which was Charlotte McConaghy's last book. I gave that 5 stars. I gave this 3.5, Once There Were Wolves. There was just a lot in it that was a lot for me to take. So this is the story of Inti and her sister, Aggie, and the trauma that they had in both their childhood and adulthood. The wolves, the part about the wolves was the most interesting part too, I think. You're very invested a bit into it, so when things start to happen you get very upset, I think. There's a lot of violence towards women in this book, which is something I think Charlotte was purposely trying to talk about, but it was a lot. I gave it a 3.5 because I didn't dislike reading it, and I love her writing. I still love her writing, and I will be picking up her latest book as soon as I can. But yeah, I didn't love it as much as I loved Migrations, but it is a worthwhile story. Again, it's about these twins who one of them is working to free wolves into the wilderness to help restore this specific ecosystem. She's met with a lot of resistance from the people who live in that area because they believe that the wolves are going to take their livelihood. And it talks a lot about, of course, like climate change and what we as humans do to the world, which is obviously what Charlotte McConaghy does, because that's what Migrations is also about. Like, that's the thread in both of these books, which I appreciate and really love the way she writes about that. This is really kind of dark, and if you're not in the mood for it, or it's not something that you want, it might not be for you. But again, I gave it 3.5. So I'm going to talk about my second 5-star book of the month, which I love that I had 2 this month. And that was Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. Oh, do I love this book. I am actually going to buy this book as soon as I can for myself because this is a library copy. I love this book so much. I loved everything about this book. I loved Dee. I loved Grasshopper. I loved the story. I loved the fantasy world. I loved the culmination of it. I loved the mystery. I loved like having to try to figure out what is happening, why it's a murder mystery. So basically it's about it's in this world called Concordia that is made up of 12 provinces. Each province has a blessed, which is a person in that is sort of in charge or will be in charge of that province who has a special ability. No, they don't know each other's special abilities. All 12 blesseds go on this voyage to the mountain where they're going to have like a sort of feast or something for the goddess. And on the way there, the Blessed start to be murdered. And so Dee, which is our main character, has to basically use his abilities to try to figure it out. However, Dee has no blessing, so he has no actual powers, but he's been lying about it. That becomes very complicated when he's trying to figure things out. I love his relationship with the grasshopper. I love so many of the characters on this book. I love the diversity of the characters in this book. It's amazing. I know that Frances White actually worked with people and had like a diversity guild. Like she had people reading all her parts to make sure that she was doing this correctly. And it just was just amazing and fantastic. And I loved it. I had a wonderful reading experience with this. It's I don't know. It's wonderful. And this cover, like you can't see and the inside, I talk about this all the time. Maps, because I love maps. It's just, I love this book so much. It had a strong magical system. It had a strong like fantasy building. Like the building of the world was really, really good. And just the message that came across it, all of the like queer representation, disability representation, BIPOC representation. It was indigenous representation. It was amazing. I love this so much. 5 stars. It could be my favorite book of the year. It's definitely up in. It's going to definitely be up in my favorite 10 at least, I think. And very quickly before I go, I didn't mention the romance in this. The romance in this is incredible. It's incredible. I can't say anything about it because if I said anything about it specifically, it would give away a lot of the plot. But love this so very, very, very much. The romance in this, I loved it. Okay, I just want to put that in there. Okay. And last but not least, I'm so excited to have finished this. I'm a little sad about it because I don't know if there's going to be another part, but I really kind of hope there is. And I finally finished reading I read Storm of Locust by Rebecca Roanhorse, which is book 2 in the Sixth World series. I know that originally there were supposed to be 4 books in this series. I don't know if Rebecca Roanhorse is still planning on it. Last I heard, I don't think there's any plans yet of having another one, but I really, really, really hope so because I absolutely love this world. I absolutely love Maggie. I love Maggie and Kai. I think their relationship is amazing. I love them. I just generally love them, their relationship. And also, I love like the found family that they have with the Goodacres, and they pick up another sort of found family in this book. And this book is about Kai and the Goodacres' youngest son being what they thought was kidnapped, but apparently falling into a cult where they're following a man called the White Locust who is determined to destroy the entire world. And so the Goodacres and more specific Risa and Maggie and some more friends go to rescue Kai. And yeah, there's a lot that happens and it's so good. I gave it 4.5 stars. I didn't quite love it as much as, I gave 5 stars to the Trial of Lightning, I think, but this was so good. This was so good, especially for a second book. If it is a second book in a series, I don't know yet. I really, really am hoping that Rebecca Roanhorse is going to decide to make this series 4 stars. Make this series 4 parts like she originally said she was going to. That's my hope because I really love this world and would like to go back into it. All right, that was it. Those are the 5 books that I read in March. Excuse me, I was going to say May. What is wrong with me? In March. And yeah, that's it for today. I hope you guys have a great week. I will try to share my April TBR at some point this week. And I hope you guys are doing well. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you read any of these books, which were your favorites. And yeah, and I will hopefully see you guys soon. Bye.